Let me tell you about two cousins. Same grandmother, same Sunday dinners, same neighborhood growing up. At 27, the first cousin, Nia, has $34,000 in investments, small emergency fund, zero credit card debt, drives a used Honda, nothing flashy. Her cousin Marcus makes more money than she does, nicer apartment, newer car, looks like he's doing well. But two missed paychecks and Marcus is done. No cushion, no investments, just income flowing in and lifestyle flowing out. Same family, completely different financial lives. Now, before I explain why, I want to show you something first, something that stopped me cold when I first saw it. Two people, same age, same fund, same 8% average return. Person A starts investing $200 a month at 22, stops completely at 32, never invests another dollar. Person B starts at 32, invests $200 a month, never stops, goes all the way to 62. Person B invested for 30 years. Person A invested for 10. Who has more money at 62? Person A, by over $140,000. 10 years beats 30 years, just because of when it started. Hold that thought, we're coming back to it. Because that example, right there, is the heart of everything we're covering today. The rules that nobody handed us, the ones that change everything once you finally see them. 7 rules. Let's get into it. My name is Ricky. I spend way too much time thinking about why first-generation earners, people working hard, genuinely making progress, still feel financially behind. Like something is off, but they can't name what. If you're earning more than your parents ever did, but still feel one emergency away from zero, you're in the right place. 7 rules. Nobody handed them to us. We're going through all of them right now. First rule, and this one stings a little. Your income is not your wealth. Marcus earns $71,000. Nia earns $52,000. Nia is wealthier. On paper, that makes no sense. In reality, it makes complete sense. Income is what flows in. Wealth is what stays. If every dollar flowing in immediately flows back out, on rent, a car payment that's slightly too high, subscriptions, lifestyle, then your income is just a river running through an empty bucket. Here's a real number. The average American household earning between $75,000 and $99,000 a year has less than $7,000 in liquid savings. Less than $7,000 on a $75,000 income. That is not an income problem. That is a where does the money go problem. And look, I'm not saying this to shame anyone. We grew up watching people spend what they earned. When money is scarce, spending it feels like relief, like proof that you made it. That impulse is completely human. But wealth is quiet. Wealth is invisible. It's the account balance, the investments, the options you have when something goes wrong. Stop measuring your financial health by what you earn. Start measuring it by what you keep. 20 years from now, nobody asks what your salary was. They ask what you built. That's not motivation talk. That's just math. If this is already hitting, go ahead and subscribe. Drop a thumbs up if it helps. All right, back to it. Rule 2, and this one is sneaky, genuinely sneaky, because it never feels like a mistake while it's happening. You get a raise, $8,000 more a year. You worked for it. You deserve it. So you upgrade the apartment a little, get a slightly better car, eat out more because you've been grinding and you've earned some comfort. Each decision feels reasonable. In isolation, each one is reasonable. But you just spent the raise before you ever saw it. This is lifestyle inflation, and it is the single most common reason people who are genuinely moving up still feel stuck 5 years into a real career. The math: $8,000 raise. After tax, call it $5,500 extra per year, about $460 a month. New apartment costs $200 more. New car payment is $180 more. Extra dinners out, another $150. That raise is gone. Every dollar. Your financial life looks exactly the same as before, just with nicer things around you. Now flip it. Same raise, you keep the old apartment 1 more year. Keep the car, Invest $400 of that $460 every month. At 8% average annual return, that $400 becomes roughly $71,000 in 10 years from one raise that you barely felt. The rule is simple. When your income goes up, your savings rate goes up first, before the apartment, before the car, before anything visible. Your future self doesn't need the upgrade right now. Your future self needs the $71,000. Rule 3. And this is where most financial advice completely fumbles. They say debt is bad. Avoid all of it. Pay everything off. Some of that is right, but incomplete advice is almost as dangerous as no advice. Here's the real rule. Debt has a personality, and the personality determines everything. There is debt that steals from you, and there is debt that can work for you. Treating them the same is a serious mistake. I carried a $4,200 credit card balance for almost 2 years, telling myself I'd pay it off soon. By the time I actually did the math, I had paid over $1,900 in interest, nearly $2,000, for nothing. No asset, no return, just the privilege of owing someone money. That is stealing debt. Credit cards at 24%, personal loans at 18%, payday loans that are financial traps dressed up as solutions. Working debt looks different. A mortgage on a home that's appreciating. A student loan at 4% that increased your earning power significantly. A business loan generating more than it costs. This debt can make sense. Not always, but it can. The rule: high-interest consumer debt. Anything above roughly 7 or 8%, treat eliminating it like your financial life depends on it, because in a real way, it does. Low-interest debt tied to an appreciating asset? Understand it, manage it, don't panic about it. Know what kind of debt you have, know its interest rate, know its personality. The debt stealing from you is doing it quietly, every single month, whether you're thinking about it or not. Rule 4, and I want to stop here and ask you something. When was the last time you made a financial decision out of fear rather than choice? Think about that honestly for a second, because most people don't realize how often those two things get confused. A job you stayed in too long, a lease you renewed because moving felt impossible, a salary negotiation you didn't push because you couldn't afford to lose the offer. That's not bad decision-making. That's what happens when there's no cushion underneath you. Here's the psychology nobody talks about. Without an emergency fund, every financial decision you make is slightly distorted. You can't negotiate aggressively because you can't afford to lose the job. You can't leave bad situations because there's nowhere financially safe to land. You are functionally trapped, even if it doesn't feel that dramatic from the inside. 3 to 6 months of expenses in a high-yield savings account, that's the target. Not in the stock market, a separate, accessible, high-yield account. If your monthly expenses total $2,800, rent, food, transportation, everything, your target is between $8,400 and $16,800. I know that feels like a lot, but you don't build it all at once. $50 a paycheck becomes $1,300 in a year. $150 a paycheck becomes nearly $4,000. And the moment you hit even $2,000, something shifts. You stop making scared decisions. You stop taking the first offer out of desperation. You stop putting the car repair on a credit card because there was simply no other option. That $2,000 doesn't just sit there. It changes how you move through the world. We grew up in households where emergencies went on credit, where one broken-down car meant a missed bill somewhere else. That was the environment, not a personal failure. But you can break that pattern, and it starts here. Not with investing, not with real estate, with a boring savings account you never touch unless something actually breaks. Build that first. Rule 5, and this one makes me genuinely frustrated because it's so powerful and nobody in our communities told us about it.
Your 401k and your Roth IRA are legal tax cheat codes. If you're not using them, you are leaving real money on the table every single year. Simply, when you earn money, the government takes a cut before you see it. Normal, that's taxes. But the IRS created special accounts where your money grows without being taxed every year. And with a Roth IRA specifically, when you withdraw that money in retirement, you pay zero tax on the gains. Zero on decades of compounded growth. The math. You invest $300 a month starting at 25. By 65, that's approximately $930,000 at an average 8% return. In a Roth IRA, you owe nothing when you take it out. Zero. Same money, same return, completely different outcome, just because of the account type. And if your employer offers a 401k match, that match is free money, part of your compensation. If your employer matches 50% of contributions, up to 6% of your salary, and you're not contributing at least 6%, you are turning down part of your own paycheck every single week. Open the account, contribute enough for the full employer match minimum. Do it before almost everything else. The complexity around this is a myth that keeps people from starting. The actual action is simple. Open account, set contribution, don't touch it. That's it. Rule 6. Not about numbers directly, but it will affect every number in your life. I was 24, had a job I was proud of, thought I was doing okay, met someone at a work event, an older guy, maybe 38. We were just talking casually and somehow money came up. He mentioned completely offhand that he'd maxed his Roth IRA every year since he was 23. Said it like it was just something you did, like checking your oil or renewing your license. I nodded like I knew what that meant. I went home that night and Googled Roth IRA. I was 24, and I had never heard those two words together in a serious context. That one conversation, not a course, not a book, not a formal lesson, that one casual mention from one person who normalized a specific behavior changed what I did with money for the rest of my life. That is the actual power of proximity. When you're around people who invest, investing starts to feel normal. When you're around people who negotiate their salary, negotiating starts to feel expected. When everyone around you is stuck in the same financial patterns, those patterns quietly start to feel like the ceiling. Not because those people are bad, because environment shapes behavior more than willpower ever does. You cannot out-discipline your environment indefinitely. Find one person who is 10 years ahead of you financially. 1. Watch how they talk about money, what they do automatically, what they consider completely normal. That proximity is worth more than almost any course you could buy. And one more thing. You are not betraying where you came from by wanting more for yourself. That quiet guilt about leaving a struggling environment behind holds more first-generation earners in place than any bad financial decision ever could. Building your stability is not selfishness. It is the prerequisite for eventually helping the people you love. Last rule, and we're back to those two people from the opening. Person A starts at 22, invests $200 a month, stops completely at 32. Person B starts at 32, invests $200 a month, never stops until 62. 30 years of investing versus 10 years of investing. Person A wins by over $140,000. Here's how to actually feel that instead of just nodding at it. At 25, $1 invested becomes roughly $21 by retirement at 65. At 35, that same dollar becomes roughly $10. At 45, it becomes less than $5. The dollar doesn't change. Time changes everything. We weren't told this at 22. We were figuring out basic survival, helping our families, paying back loans nobody walked us through before we signed them, doing the best we could with what we had. Some of that time is genuinely gone. It's okay to feel that for a moment, but the second best time to start is right now. Not when the debt is cleared, not when you feel more stable, not when you understand it all perfectly. Right now, with whatever you have, even $50 a month. The version of you 10 years from now, the one who started today, is going to look back at this exact moment and understand precisely what it was worth. Remember Nia and Marcus. Same grandmother, same Sunday dinners. Different financial lives. Nia isn't lucky. She's not more disciplined in some deep character way. She just received information earlier. Someone handed her the rules without having to search. You had to search. You're here figuring this out without anyone placing it in your hands. That takes more than most people will ever acknowledge. But you have the rules now, and honestly, that changes everything. If this helped you today, share it with someone who needed to hear it. Subscribe if you're new. I'll see you in the next one.